Hello people, I am Jaby KOAY, joined by KIRK.
Hey guys.
This is our review for Street Dancer 3D. In summary, my feeling is this. Street Dancer 3D is like a Happy Meal from McDonald's. And instead of a hamburger, you get bubble gum and popcorn and carrots, as well as a genie toy with a little card that has a picture of the poor, impoverished boy that made it and how you can donate to him. That's what this movie feels like. I don't mean that in a negative way. That's literally what it feels like. You're getting a lot of different things at once that don't necessarily feel like they would go together in a typical film in this genre. Like if you go look at ABCD, or I haven't seen ABCD 2 yet, I imagine it's a similar vibe where it's really just about the story of this dance crew and it's not trying to do anything more than that, and it's trying to find the heart within that story.
Right.
Whereas this is looking for heart in external factors. It's bringing in political information or political ideology or ideas, political stuff. It's trying to bring all that in an effort to tell a much bigger message than the film itself. Meanwhile, it's bubblegum. It's a lot of spectacle over the course of 2.5 hours. I did find myself personally getting frustrated with the film at times because of the choppy editing, where I couldn't appreciate the choreography as much. The same complaint I had with the music videos that we watched. You know, like I enjoyed a lot of what I was seeing, but I didn't get to enjoy it quite as much as what potentially was there because of the editing, because of the constant use of slow motion, where it's like, it felt like the filmmakers, and I mean like the director and the editor, were constantly interfering with the choreography as opposed to enhancing it. That's not the entire time. That is throughout the film. The film, for me, got better as it got moved towards the middle and the last part of it. For me, it was completely worthwhile going because of Prabhudeva and seeing him, you know, do that dance sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, we already saw it.
But you got more.
Yeah, but like, I said it in the reaction, I'm like, I would pay just to watch this on the big screen with the full audio, right? With the full experience, that immersive experience. It would have been 1,000%, if not for the jerk next to me who kept flipping up on his phone. For me, it was worth it to see Prabhudeva do that dance. If anything, I wanted more of him in this movie. I would have just watched him for 2.5 hours dancing, but like, I thought that it was great that he was in this film at all and provided what he did beyond that one dance sequence. The final dance sequence is, as per tradition with these dance films, is pretty cool. My complaints stand. The film would have benefited more from less editing. On the contrary though, there was like that motion control camera movement that we saw in one of the music videos I thought was cool. I thought that I would have loved more of that, because in my head while I was watching it, I'm like, oh my God, how cool would it have been if they did like dance moves with that camera work, right? As opposed to slowing it down all the time and like the choppy editing. And initially like the lights stuff was cool, where they're like, it was lights on their body and whatnot. I thought that was neat, and then they kept doing that, and I was like, okay, it stopped being neat.
For me, it just felt like a really long music video. Like you were saying, it was just like a bunch of montages chopped together and thrown together. And I really enjoyed the dancing in this. I thought the dancing was fantastic, and I loved all of the dance crew competition stuff. And I especially appreciated that they incorporated a lot of real life dance crews.
You said in the car on the ride back here that they captured the spirit of that environment.
They really did, yeah.
You keep going. Don't stop for me.
I'm just like so distracted by you
just
coughing.
Keep going.
Like I'm afraid that you're gonna die.
No, I'll be fine. You just went down the wrong hole.
That's what she said. Anyway, it really did encompass the feeling of being at an event like that, because I used to enjoy going to the World B-Boy Championships in the UK back in the day, and it was really cool. Like the crowd was really fun. You get that kind of vibe where everybody's cheering and everybody's like, oh my God, did they just do that? And they definitely captured that. I really enjoyed that they got some real life dance crews into the mix and brought them in to give it that authentic feel for the different dance crews. So all of that I enjoyed. I just felt like it was really lacking heart, which is what really drew me into ABCD in the first place, because you've got great dancing, but you've also got a great story. Whereas I felt with this, the story was kind of lacking. And even though there were moments where I was like starting to feel emotional, it still feels not genuine in a way.
Well, this is like a kung fu movie, but with dancing instead of fight scenes. You go to a kung fu movie, you know, like Shaw Brothers' classic kung fu film, not for the story, but for the fight scenes, right? And so this was the same kind of thing. I was completely on board with that. I'm accepting of that 1,000%. If you don't have heart like you do with ABCD, that's fine. I would have accepted it if the editing wasn't in the way as much for me. There was some dance sequences. In particular, the noteworthy dance sequence was with Punit Pathak and Varun Dhawan, I'm not gonna give the whole thing away. They just had a dance sequence together that I loved because I actually could see what was happening. I could actually appreciate the choreography. They did interrupt it a couple times with some stupid flashbacks, but like you could see the choreography, the music was working well with it, and it was a very unique style of dance.
It was lyrical.
Right, but the thing is, I don't want to be too specific and tell you what happens, but there is a specific reason why the dance is shaped the way it is, if that makes any sort of sense. And I thought that was an interesting integration. I thought that was very creative and brilliant. And I like that the director there allowed the choreography to sort of take over the scene and not interrupt it with too much editing and like fancy camera work and whatnot.
I also really enjoyed the Wild Rippers, and I've been trying to find their stuff so that we can actually react to it on YouTube, but it's been really hard to find because I know they're a really great dance crew, and I enjoyed their dance in the semi-finals so much. I thought that they were a really formidable opponent, and I kind of wished that they would have been the main antagonists rather than the Royals, who was the dance crew that was the team that they had to beat. But there was never a moment really where I watched the Royals and I was like, wow, I'm really, really impressed with what they're doing, and I feel scared for our protagonists. They were great, but I was like, I wasn't floored.
That speaks to the message of the film, right? So earlier in the video, I said like, it's a happy meal and the toy's a genie.
Yeah.
And I said that because of the wishful thinking aspect of this film, which is this Indian crew and this Pakistani crew come together. Not to say that like, Indians and Pakistanis who meet overseas and don't end up becoming friends, because they do. That happens all the time. In fact, you have marriages that happen, like where you have an Indian and a Pakistani that get married, right? And so these sort of relationships, these bonds, do form overseas frequently. It's a very common thing. But I feel like if you have two crews who are very, for lack of a better word, jingoistic about their nation, very patriotic, right? Where they feel very strongly about India and the other crew feels very strongly about Pakistan, the odds of them actually coming together is like very, very, very tiny, if not zero. And so to me, it's very wishful thinking. And the whole thing is, the reason why it had to be the Royals is the common threat, the common enemy. And so the overall message is, if we work together, we're unstoppable. Which, at the risk of causing some controversy, I think that is true. If Pakistan was able to get its act together and India and Pakistan were able to work together, they would be an unstoppable force. From the outside looking in, I'm like, if you guys could work together, that would be amazing. I don't think that's gonna happen though. So that's why the movie to me is wishful thinking. Because I'm like, yeah, y'all would be unstoppable, but that's not gonna happen. There's just too much beef in there. No pun intended. Like, there's just way too much beef there. That's a saying over here in this, I don't know if you guys get that.
Yeah, no, I think they get it. I do see your point there, and I guess maybe that is the most realistic, but I guess in my mind, I'm like, everyone can just join together as Daisies abroad.
Well, that is what happens. That's what I meant earlier.
Yeah.
It was like, that happens all the time. We know a couple that is Pakistani and Indian.
I know
Like,
more than one couple.
Okay,
yeah.
well, so there's that. Just like the cop in the movie, we've met multiple people who are half Pakistani and half Indian. I keep saying the Pakistani thing messes me up because I think that's how you're supposed to say it. Not Pakistani, but Pakistani. Just like Muslim instead of Muslim. And so now I'm going half instead of half because the sound is messing me up. Anyway, y'all know what I'm trying to say. Back to the film, the story. So the first 40 minutes of the movie, I'm watching and I'm going, I don't know where this film's going, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I was sort of like, where is this headed? It's just sort of like this random stuff that was happening. The film finally seemed grounded once Prabhudeva showed up. Then it sort of took direction.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they took direction a little bit sooner. I mean, it spent 40 minutes, which I guess is fair now that I think about it, like really establishing like, this is the Pakistani group, this is the Indian group, and they hate each other. And like, they really, really drove that point home. But I'm like, I get that before I even walk into the film. Before I walk into this, I already know y'all don't like each other. So like, you don't really need to emphasize it. That's all I'm saying. Why are you smiling? Why are you laughing?
No.
What?
Can I not do that?
I don't know. I just, you guys, am I being funny? Do I have asshole written on my face?
No. It's just like, yeah, that's true. You don't need to, unless they're trying to make the movie have more universal appeal, and maybe a lot of people who are not as well versed in the conflict between India and Pakistan, they're not going to understand why they hate each other.
Okay, I'm gonna get into spoilers now, so if you haven't seen the film yet, then turn this off and go watch the movie and come back. I do think it's worth watching, especially for Prabhudeva, and there's a handful of sequences that I thought were very much worthwhile for, you know, in the spectacle of the silver screen, you know, with the lights and the sound and everything, the full audio,
it was fun.
Dolby. It's worth it for those scenes. But anyway, okay, spoilers. The movie starts out with Punit Pathak's dance sequence with his crew, and he breaks his ankle or whatever, his knee. They needed to show that in order to establish his injury and start off with a spectacle of a dance, right? Story-wise, though, it would have been more effective if they just started out with the game at the bar, where they're watching the soccer, the cricket game rather, and you see the two crews there and they're opposing each other. Like, you immediately know what's up with this story. Like, what is this about? These two people hate each other.
Right.
Like, you immediately get it. And then the thing with the brother could have been a flashback. Like, you see him walk in with a messed up leg. You already know something's up with him. Without having seen that scene, you already know he went through something.
Yeah.
And he's got some sort of debilitating injury, and then maybe you have a flashback to explain it. That, to me, narratively would have been much more effective as a movie, because then you already know what you're on board for and it starts to make sense. I think the overall message of the film is strong. The whole thing is like, they're trying to help out their brothers and sisters that are in the streets, both India and Pakistan. And I'm like, that's a worthwhile cause and effort. I mean, and it's based on something real. In my mind, not knowing that this thing existed in England, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, wouldn't this make much more sense in the UAE? It's well known that there's a lot of impoverished like Indians over there. I don't know if there's Pakistanis as well, but there's like Indian.
They have like Indians. They've probably, I don't know. They must have Pakistanis. They've got Thais. They've got Filipinos.
So in my mind, like that would have made more sense. And I'm going, and so after the film, and I see that little thing, I'm like, oh well, maybe for Street Dancer 4D, like that can take place in the UAE to just have another message film if that's what they want to do. I like the message. I thought the message was cool. I just wish that, like, okay, if you're not gonna give me more heart in the movie, then you need to let me appreciate the dancing more, because it's just like too much of that. But like, okay, fine, if you want to have your like fancy editing, that's cool, but then I need something to root me emotionally better with the story, because the way Varun Dhawan was behaving, I couldn't exactly root for him.
God, I hated him. I mean, I don't like hate Varun Dhawan, but I just hated his character. In the beginning, I was just like, I know you're supposed to be the lead guy, but you're a real dick, and I can't get on board with you.
Well, initially they made him all right because he bought that studio for his brother.
But even just his personality, I was like, God, you're so cocky. And you're so, like, I just couldn't really like him. And then later on, when he realized the error of his ways, when he came back to the crew after joining the Royals, I was like, all right, you're okay. I liked him more. But in the beginning, I was just like, ugh.
The film confused me a little bit morally with the sick people he brought over, because they were hounding him to basically help shepherd them into England. They kept hounding him. They said, no. And then the dude was like, we'll pay you double. He's like, okay, fine. They were hounding him. He wasn't trying to get them across and then asking for money. So they made him into a bad guy when he just complied with what they wanted. That was confusing for me.
Yeah, I mean, he complied, but then he just abandoned them.
What's he supposed to do? I'm asking myself, like, what is he supposed to do? Honestly, like.
Well, I guess it's like, for me, that moment where he sees the guy and he's sleeping rough on the bus, and then he sees the other guys and stuff. If he was a really nice person, if he'd seen that guy on the bus and he had that whole relationship with him where he was like, I think you're gonna do really well, like you're so talented, blah, blah, blah. Why wouldn't you just take him home?
Take him home where?
Like, take him to your house.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a movie, I suppose. Anything's possible.
He's clearly rich. His house in London, I'm sorry, if you have a house that nice in London, you're doing really well for yourself. Like,
you're talking
really
about you're talking about Varun Dhawan.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Like, why didn't he just take him home and be like,
gotcha.
I'm so sorry, mate. Let me help you out. I can't get you home right now, but let's try and figure something out.
He couldn't do that because he had to have the character arc.
Well, yeah, but that's why I was like, it was so tough to like him, because he was such an asshole.
Here's how they could have done it. The brother needed surgery of some kind and it was really expensive, and his family couldn't afford it. Something like that would have made more sense, where this money from the prize money would have been to save his brother. Save his brother's knee, or save his school, or something like that. Because he really had no reason in this movie to do anything other than ego.
And that's why it was so hard to get on board with him, I think, because he was just all ego and bravado.
Exactly. If there was something in place that he was aiming for, that he was striving for, like, let's say his brother's knee, so his brother could dance again, then at some point, his brother can, like, have its heart-to-heart with him and be like, don't worry about me, I'm happy. Let's save these people.
Right. Oh my god,
Yeah.
I'm already like, wow.
That would have been a lot more effective as a story, and you would be on board with Varun Dhawan's character from the beginning and understand why there's this, all that stuff. The last thing I want to say is the name of their dance crew that they decided on once they merged, because he's like, no, it's Rule Breakers is better, and then Shraddha Kapoor's like, actually, I like Street Dancers, and he's like, okay, Street Dancers. It's like, wait, so why didn't you merge the names? Like, Street Rulers or something like that, or Rule Breakers, or Street Breakers or something. Like, you could have chosen a name that was like
Rule Breakers from the streets,
or Rule Dancers.
Yeah, I don't know.
You could have chosen something that well, Rule Dancers is amazing, obviously. I feel like they could have chosen a hybrid of the names. Because, like, they obviously didn't want it to be a name that involved their countries. They wanted to go off of the names of their groups, but I'm like, you could have merged, like, you merged groups.
Well, yeah, I see that, but I
Prabhudeva should have came up and been like, Street Rulers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe. The only reason I think the street dancer thing was nice, because it was a callback to the beginning, which was his brother dancing with the street dancers and like not being able to win. So now he's finally able to win for his brother under the name of the team.
Rule Streeters. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Make sure to check out ACHARA KIRK on the social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you get notified every time we drop another video. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of Street Dancers 3D. And subscribe if you haven't already. Did I say that? I did say that. Follow me on Instagram, please. I'm desperate for followers. And yep, I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.